Chris, welcome to Locked In, man. We are at I'm going to butcher the name of the town. What town are we in?
Murfreesboro.
Murfreesboro, but isn't it like it's not called Murfreesboro Correctional Facility, right?
No.
Isn't it Rutherford?
Rutherford County.
Yeah, correctional facility.
Correct.
Thank you to William Cope for introducing us, making this happen. I interviewed the superintendent, William Cope, here back in April. He was sitting in that exact chair.
Yeah.
He was nervous. Don't tell the boss, though. And now it's a pleasure to have you, man. And I want to plug in your shop because you have your own tattoo shop right here.
Yeah, we have a Pure Heart Tattoo here in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, located on South Church Street. We've been here since 2021.
Awesome, man. And you do a wide range of tattoos?
Yeah, we have tattoos and piercings, very family friendly. We specialize in black and gray realism, traditional, all of the tattooing and piercing for the community.
Awesome. Is there like a shop minimum or a small size? I know different shops have different rules.
Yeah, we do have minimums there, but we really are versatile. We like to service the public in all of its phases, not just the elites and not just the bottoms, but everybody in between can find a spot at Pure Heart Tattoo.
Awesome. Now, when the superintendent texted me, he said, you got to interview this guy. Crazy story, and there's a redemption part to this too. Did you grow up in Tennessee?
No, we moved here in 2021 from San Diego. I grew up in San Diego. I was born in 1982. My dad was in the Navy, and my mom was a crack whore. And so my dad was from a different state, moved out there to be in the Navy, had me and my brother, and then left. And we were raised fatherless and poverty in San Diego.
So it was just you and your brother?
Yeah.
How old was he?
He's 18 months younger than me.
Were you guys close growing up?
Super close, best friends. We were born in El Cajon, which is a suburb of San Diego, and thank God we didn't stay there because that had been just another statistic. But my mom stepped in the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous when we were 5, and my brother was 4 or 3, and met a guy there who moved us to North County, San Diego, to Fallbrook, California, which is, God bless, outside of the biggest Marine Corps base in the continental United States. So we went from inner city, regular, to being poor kids in a rich neighborhood, which gave us, through sports, organized sports and church, and we were hanging out with drill sergeants and lieutenants, and our friends' dads were able to model something that we knew we lacked or didn't have, but was always maybe attainable in a dream, right? Coming up fatherlessness, like in America today, is such a rampant thing where most of our, like we talked about earlier, our traumas come from our childhood, and trying to get past those things. But when we moved up to Fallbrook, I was able to join football, and organized sports really saved my life growing up with the direction that a young boy needs from a male, from those coaches and those players that we bonded in locker rooms over together. And we ended up playing the same sports teams for 10 years. And all the way through high school, that was my identity. I played sports, and the whole life was revolved around trying to avoid home. My mom was mentally ill, and trying to find an identity inside of football. We would go down to San Diego often, and that's where the drugs start trickling into my life. Started smoking weed when I was like 12 or 13 in junior high, but shortly after got introduced to speed from my cousins down in San Diego, and we would live like the white suburban life up in Fallbrook. And then once a week or a month or whatever, my mom would take us back down to the hood to hang out with our cousins and our aunts and our uncles. So we had that pattern of brokenness for a really, really long time. But my junior year, I tore my ACL, and football was over. I mean, I never realized I was only 5'5", and I wasn't going anywhere anyways. But I had those ambitions, when you're a kid, like you're going to be a pro something. And when I tore my ACL, it was all gone. Like I was not playing football anymore. I had no reason to go to school. So I dropped out. Came to my mom, told her, hey, I'm going to get my GED, and I'm not going to go to school anymore. It's not for me. About 6 months later, I ended up in county jail. So I had been using drugs on and off all the way through high school, and once I had dropped out and started hanging around those drug people, it was the Band-Aid to the pain, that we talk about in addiction, where it starts small, and you think that it's just going to be one thing, and it leads into another. But yeah, I was 18 years old, man, at Donovan State Penitentiary.
Wow. Now, had your dad been around, do you think you wouldn't have went down that path? Like if you had that strict military kind of father?
Yeah, I've had a lot of time now that I'm 42 to really, with 10 years clean and sober, to really go back and unpack some of that stuff. And 100%. The male role model of a father figure inside of a young person's life is so crucial to the decision making that they have in their preteen, adolescents, 20 years old, that if I had had that connection with an older male, I believe 100% that I wouldn't have made those faulty choices in my 20s and 30s that, took me down that spiral of destruction. But it's also to say, a lot of my buddies out there they're alive and still ain't alive right now. They had dads, man, and they still made all them same choices. So I think that, there's a time that comes in a man's life where he has to own up for his own self and figure out what part of that is controllable and what part of it is just uncontrollable stuff that happens to people.
Yeah, were you picked on or struggled or had struggles in school because you were the poor kid in the rich neighborhood?
Yeah, you know what? I didn't even realize that until I was about 35 years old, and we were talking about our hometown and growing up with some family friends, and they told us that. Mm. Like, I didn't even realize that my mom was so loud and obnoxious. Like, I knew it offended me, and I was like, man, this lady's crazy. How come she could be like that in public, But that the whole town had looked at us like that growing up. I remember only getting the thing from the mall when my friends' parents would buy it for us, or if we were out at football and they would go to In-N-Out Burger. It's like, hey, Chris, do you want something? I'm like, well, if you can afford it, I want it, And I didn't realize the classification that they could put on people in their own neighborhoods looking down at you. But I do remember the friends that had dads and the friends that didn't. And you could tell by their patterns, by their lifestyles, and how much that just impacts people, And then sitting in those prison cells, I did almost 10 years altogether. You look around and you're like, what do we all have in common? How did we all end up here? Like, there's good people. And most of it's fatherlessness and drug addiction. Mm-hmm. And either one of those combined, we're supposed to be like a tribe, a community of people who pour into other people. And when a woman, through society or her own choices or whatever, makes it to where maybe the dad was a bad guy or maybe he wasn't, but then those kids have to raise up inside of their own thinking, whatever's inside of their own heads, and they don't know how to look for help. They don't know how to be instructed in ways that are good. They just kind of, like I did, ran my own plays. And for a long time, my philosophy was I was no man's son. And that's a bad spot to be in, man, making all your own choices. But since then, we've matured a lot and have found a lot of good mentors.
No, a lot of the people I interviewed that grow up the way you grew up don't even have friends, parents to help support them. Why do you think, even though you had that wasn't enough to keep you on the right track?
Selfishness, the ego. I think that the wickedness and evil and self-ambition is born in the heart of everybody. And if it's not coached out right, that it could be detrimental on every level. And that was what mine was. Like, I don't know how an 18-year-old boy or a 20-year-old man can repeatedly go in and out of county jail, just in prisons, justifying stuff, having nothing, no car, not a house, not anything to show for themselves, but still feel in your own head that, like, I'm making the right moves today. Mm-hmm. Oh, I just got, it was a little bit of this, or a little bit of that, but not having that accountability, not having the right place to run, the right perspective of life, the victim mentality. Like, I've been abused every way since I was 7, sexually, physically, mentally, emotionally, everything abused. So there's a lot to write off to that. Well, like, if my dad was here, if this, and there comes a time in your life that you have to take accountability that whatever has happened, whatever is in the past is in the past, but that, we can define ourselves by what we do, our habits, rituals, and routines, not by what's happened to us. And, thankfully in my 30s, that was modeled to me through some mentors.
All right, if you're into sports and want to make some real cash, you've got to check out Prize Picks. They're the top choice for real money, daily fantasy sports with over 10 million members and billions awarded. It's super simple. Just pick more or less on player projections, and you're in. And this season, I'm putting all that sports knowledge from my prison days to work. Right now, I'm banking on Patrick Mahomes for more passing touchdowns, Tyreek Hill for more receiving yards, and Christian McCaffrey for more rushing yards. These guys are delivering week after week, and then it's turning my picks into real money. Prize Picks also has something called Flex Play, which means even if one of your picks doesn't hit, you can still get a payout. Plus, they've got injury insurance to keep your lineup alive if one of your players leaves in the first half. Talk about peace of mind. If you're ready to cash in, download Prize Picks and use code Ian Bick to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code Ian Bick for an instant $50 bonus. Jump in the game, grab your phone right now or after this episode's over, and get ready to cash in by downloading Prize Picks and use code Ian Bick to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code Ian Bick for an instant $50 bonus. Prize Picks, run your game. Now let's get back into today's episode. Do you ever think about what would have happened if you didn't have that sports injury? Like if you stuck with sports?
Yeah, I do think about that, but I also know that I didn't have the right tools to succeed, period. My brother, who's a year and a half younger than me, says that when they asked you in class what you were going to be when you grew up, he like knew we were going to be convicts, man. He just knew it, you know? And we were not bad kids. We were like the rowdies, the ones you didn't want to mess with. But when we got later older and into drugs, that's when that whole like pendulum swings from like what is okay to what's not okay.
You know what I think about is like, I talk to so many people and I feel like bad because they're born into this life. Like you just said that you guys were meant to be convicts.
Yeah.
That was already predetermined and you set off on this path and there's no stopping that. Like that was your destiny for that period of your life.
Right.
And it's just so crazy to think that that is how some destinies are.
Yeah. As I look at America in a wider and broader view, I would say personally, nothing like scientific or nothing, there's 30% of the elite that don't have anything idea what I'm talking about. And there's 30%, like that's their reality, man. And being at the poverty or lower line when your uncles model it, you know, your people around you model it, to be able to break through that and get spiritual enlightenment. You know, I think that's the big reason why the programs were invented, man, was because there is a higher way of thinking. And like Nip said, like I knew self-destruction wasn't the only way. You know, and that was all that was modeled to us was self-indulgence and then self-destruction. And what you hear a lot about is humility, man. And that's really what had happened to me was at the end of me, you know, I had humbled myself and got advice from some people that I idolized them, and not in like famous ways. Like I'm like, man, you have a nice wife that loves you. You have kids that really love you, you know, and these men opened up to me and showed me their playbook, man, like 1990s Dallas Cowboys, man. And I knew that the proof was in the pudding because I had studied them. You know, I had talked to people who had known them for a long time. And I would tell my friends in recovery now, when I was going through 80s, my mom was in recovery, 90s, my mom was in recovery. It was a joke to me. You know, there was no statistical proof. All I saw was people relapsing over and over and over again. And I figured my whole life, like, that's a joke. It's not going to work. Now here we are, fast forward 2024, man. The stats are out, bro. It works, you know? And it took me all those years. I don't know why God let me not overdose or why God didn't let me die in my addiction. But I'm glad the tech has gone the way it has, that people have kept the numbers and that there is no denying it. You know, there is a better way, and that there is people out there that are ministering still. You know, if those people wouldn't have gotten me 10 or 12 years ago, like we talked about earlier, the people that are planting the seeds before you even get to the rooms, you know? And if all of that wasn't going in the way that it was for me to meet me where I was ready to be humble.
Now, do you end up graduating high school or you go right to prison before graduating?
Yeah, no, I dropped out, got my GED at Maricosta College in San Diego, and was in prison. By the time my friends were graduating, it was within 6 months.
It's so wild to think about that. And I went through, like, when my friends were going to college, I was, you know, on trial in a federal indictment. You know, when you put that in perspective, how different it is.
And so I think about that, too, on the way down here. What I wanted to talk about was we have to go back in our heads. This is 2002. There's no social media. Mm-hmm. You have no idea what this type of prison looks like. Now you're like, oh, I got an idea. The guy's got cell phones. It's going to be cool. Like, I can talk to my girls still. They give me an email. In 2002, it wasn't like that, dude.
Yeah, there was no prison break, nothing.
Dude, I was going from a little tiny high school kid with maybe a little bit of a drug problem to full-blown gang activity, you know, coming out of the 90s, 2000 era. It was still wild back then, man. It was a whole nother thing. And, you know, when you were in Rome, you had to do as the Romans do.
How did you end up in the penitentiary?
So it's silly, stupid stories, but I had stolen a Swan's ice cream truck, man.
Swans? What's a Swan?
Swans,
That was a brand?
Yeah, they still do it today. They deliver from the from the internet to your house.
Okay.
It has $10,000 worth of filet mignon and fish and blow pops, everything you can imagine inside of a store on a truck. We're walking up to my friend's house. The guy won't give me a ride somewhere to score some dope. And so I tell this kid I'm with, I'm like, hey, man, jump in the truck. I saw the guy walk the other way. And I jumped in. I start this truck up. It's like a F350 stick shift. And I'm like 18 years old. I've never driven one before. So I start to lay in the gas and let the clutch off, and it's not going anywhere. And I'm like, oh, God. And the kid's looking at me crazy. And I look down and it said, emergency air brake. So I hit the air brake, and we peel out of this thing. And I lived in Fallbrook at the time. And I went to my friend's house, and they're like, dude, they're already looking for you, bro. Get out of here. So I drove it down to Encinitas, and I lived in it for 2 weeks.
Oh, you got away with it.
Got away with it, dude. I was trading it to dope, man. I remember trading it for mushrooms. And, one time, like 2 weeks later, I had slept in it. I'd taken it to the bar and told girls it's my work truck. Like, yeah, I work for Swans, no big deal, you know? Some kind of maniac. And then, like, someday I went down there to go check on it, and it was gone. And so then I went down to Carlsbad Drive and the 5 freeway, and this 2002 Toyota Avalon was just running at the gas station. So I jumped in and took off in it. And so they got me. The stupidest stories, man. I was, a kid in a park in San Diego, a state park, and I'm honking at the state trooper in a stolen car with people all around me, like my friends and drugs and everything. And the guy pulls me out of the car. I go to prison that day, bro, for the state trooper for giving him a false name, GTA. And then they got me for the Swans truck that I had. Did they
know about it?
Not at the time. Okay. I was on the run for probation. Okay. So they knew that I was on the GTA, and so then they bundled all that together and sent me to prison for my first time when I was 18.
What was that sentence? How much? Was it?
I think it was 16 months with half.
16 months. Okay.
I was one of those guys that was like doing life on the installment plan. Mm-hmm. Like I thought I was too slick to get caught. But then again, I was never like the dope man or never the the man or whatever. I was just like the crawdad in the group that was just enough to get high the next day. So between then and the last time I got out of prison was like 2015. I did 10 years.
Wow. Now, when you stole the truck, are you like a hustler where you're going to steal the product and sell it, or you just wanted a place to sleep?
Yeah, I was going to sell it for some dope. I mean, I never had ambitions. Yeah, just like, here you go, man, give me a dope sack for it, Mm-hmm. Never was a criminal mastermind. I never really had ambition. I never thought in my life that I would be in the position I am and the success that I have today in my business and my personal life. Which I learned from somebody else, but yeah, man, it was crazy. I don't know what I was thinking.
Now, this is a California state penitentiary.
Yeah.
Back in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
Whole different ball game. 100%. This is like where those crazy prison, stories that we know come from. Yeah. So do they send you to a max or?
Oh man, I got the coolest first day prison story. So I remember walking up and it's like big, moldy, everything is razor wire. I'm super scared. We sit us in this little cell with 23, 25 people in it all day long. Then we go to the chow hall, and we walk in, and they have giant, this is 2002, giant metal trays with metal bowls on them and stuff. And I'm like, what? You can't have this here. Like, what are we doing, Grown men everywhere, and I'm sitting down, eating my chow, and then they take us back to the 150-minute men block, and they start calling off 2 by 2, like, okay, you guys still up here. You guys go for medical hold, like 3 to 5 days. Make sure you got TB or you're not sick or whatever. And I don't know if it's because my last name was S or what, but they're like, all right, Sharpe, and you're over there, like all by myself, right? I'm like, shit. So I go to this prison cell all by myself. The lights aren't working. We're in Donovan, overlooking Mexico, and I'm like, okay, God, Hail Mary prayer. I'm sitting at the table like, okay, man, I'll do anything. Just get me out of here, man, whatever you got to do. And so I go to the Bible and I grab it and I open it up. This is the first night I'm in prison, bro. And 100 razor blades fall out of it. And I just start crying. I'm like, I'm going to die here, dude. Like, there's no way. If I have this many knives, what do they have out there, Scared. Just all night, like, just laying there. Next day, biggest white dude you ever seen, like, from Gladiator, comes knocking on the door. Do. It's like, daytime's up, Tom Wood. I'm like, what? What do you mean, I go to the door, he introduces himself, and I'm like, I'm just scared, bro. Every day I'm sitting in my cell with nothing to do, just kind of waiting. And then this is how I became gang related, man. I went from a little kid that loved football, and I figured out later that I was easily recruited, man, because I was that guy that wanted a male role model. I wanted somebody to say good job. I wanted to belong, you know. So they let us out for yard, and it's Donovan, level 4 yard for reception, and then you get classified and you go everywhere else. So it's literally just like that movie, bro. Like you go out and it's all the gang member black dudes, all the gang member white dudes, all the gang member Mexicans. And then there's one table with like the NACs, the non-affiliated Caucasians, right? The geriatrics. And so I'm like, fuck, I'm gonna go stand with these dudes, you know? And I go over there, I'm sitting there and I'm talking with them and I'm just hanging out, like trying to keep my back, you know, head on a swivel and stuff. And like 4, 5, 6 of the biggest white dudes you ever seen come walking by all tatted up. And I'm like, man, those guys look really cool. And they came through and they made a joke to us about not knowing something about white supremacy. And I was like, what do you mean? I know that, dude. And they're like, oh yeah, come over here, you're with us now. And that day I went from just a regular white kid to an independent skinhead.
Just
in
like
the
that.
blink of an eye.
Holy cow.
Yeah, there's a loophole back there. Like if you're a black gang member, you have to actually be from a gang, like a blood gang or a Crip gang. If you're a Serrano or a Nathaniel, you actually need to be from one of those neighborhoods. With the white gangs in California, you could just be independent. So you didn't have to be like jumped into a real street gang. It was basically just a extortion ring. And you know, if you guys have been there before too, that any kind of prison gang is the lowest form of manipulating human beings in the world, man. And I got sucked in. You know, I was ready to go, bro. I wanted to be the best prison gang member that I could be, you know, and it gave me something, like I said, to belong to believe in, to think that, you know, it would have something and protection too, man. I had an incident in the county jail before I got there that let me knew very quickly that this was not a one-on-one kind of thing, dude. And that I tell my friends, like, I wasn't dark enough to join the black gang, didn't know Spanish, couldn't get in the Mexican gangs. And in that time in my life, I had to do that, you know? And it was wild. It was like next level to like what I almost look at myself as like a military man. Like when they say everybody should go to military or prison or something like that, that's how it was for me. It was very raw and very real, with a lot of violence that happened really fast. But by the time I was 25, I realized this is all a lie, dude. Like these guys are, I came back and everybody had PC'd up. I'm like, wait, what? Like, oh, you guys? Like, what's going on here? And drugs, over sleeping with each other's wives, over debts, over all these other things that, you know, I realized that what they were doing wasn't right. Being a career criminal wasn't going to work, you know. But yeah, I made a lot of regrets and a lot of bad decisions in there. One time, I got back on a violation. You know, it was like a 5-month violation. And something came up that somebody had to do. And I was like, it's not going to be me, guys. Like, I'm out of here in 90 days now or 4, you know. And these 2 other guys were like, yeah, man, we'll take care of it or whatever. And at the wrong time, at the wrong place, I come walking around this turn in the track, and they're my 2 buddies getting their ass kicked, dude. Like, just smashed out by this guy that they were supposed to. And so I jumped in, man, and I kind of helped them. Then the yard went down. And then before I know it, I'm pepper sprayed, beat to a bloody pulp in the SHU program for 18 months with an assault and attempted murder charge, man, because they stabbed that dude. And I took 5 months to 23 months, 18 of them by myself, from being gang related, being there.
Did you understand the morals of the skinheads when you joined, essentially? Did you know what they were about?
Yeah, yes and no. It's all watered down. It's all fed spoonful. It's all what you want to hear kind of stuff. The same kid who I grew up with, a giant Bob Marley picture and a giant Tupac picture hanging in my bedrooms at all time. You know, it was never about, for me, it was never about hate for anybody else. It was hate myself. And before I became a believer, there's a Slayer song that I like that said, just me and my world of enemies. You know, no separation or segregation. And that's how I was at that age of my life. It didn't matter if you were white or if you were black or if you were Mexican. I really just didn't like you. I didn't like myself. You know, I've always been nice. I've always been able to smile and be pleasant, but without the self-worth. I mean, I've never thought that I was worth anything since I was a little kid. So, but no, like, I mean, They would have meetings there for like Odinist beliefs, and they would have like the 88 precepts, and they would have you memorize David Lane quotes and stuff like this. But kind of always thought that was like a joke, you know, like I could see the benefit of being organized inside of the institution, but like when it got outside, I never ever seen anybody in that do anything good or bad with it, you know?
Yeah, was there organization outside? Like I know the Aryan Brotherhood, they run operations. They send like there's no leaving the Brotherhood.
Yeah, no.
You have to go out and do missions.
Yeah, so it's just a big drug using, like I said, people manipulating. There's no real. It's not like the Hell's Angels. It's not like the Aryan Brotherhood. Those are real gangs, man. This was a street gang. It was an accumulation of hundreds of. And it's still going on today. Like I'm sure of it. I'm sure nothing has changed. Maybe more, but it's very petty. It's not. It wasn't like. You know, you hear these great rapper stories, or I was part of this gang, and we were moving all these drugs to these towns, and we were doing this and doing that. I never once saw any of that with any of the people inside or outside, where they had like made some kind of criminal dynasty, you know, like Fast and Furious or something like that. And not saying it's not happening. Maybe today, maybe it was then. Maybe I wasn't a part of it, you know, but. Yeah, it was pretty. And I think that's why it was easy for me to get out of it when I saw that, like, when I had a kid, you know, and that the choices that these guys were making wasn't something that they would even stand by for themselves on a small scale. So how are they going to stand by it on a large scale?
Yeah. Growing up, I always thought like the skinheads were like it was the most dangerous. It just sounds bad, like skinhead, you know, compared to like Aryan Brotherhood, which later on you'd find out are one of the most, you know, evil people in prison.
Yeah.
Were the skinheads like evil people, or are they just, can you tell us about like what it's like in prison as a skinhead?
Yeah, man, it's pretty evil, bro. Like one of my friends the other day talked about demons, and I said, yeah, man, I've seen demons. And she's like, you seen demons? I'm like, bro, you have not seen the tables that I've sat at, and there wasn't some kind of evil force going on there, man, because putting other people's lives at so low value, you know, the demon of addiction, you know, all these other things. But yeah, man, so it's a lot like a locker room at a high school football team. You know, you wake up in prison, you either are by yourself or with some guys from like if you're from San Diego, then you could sit with the white guys from San Diego, or you could link up with the skinheads. And it's just like I would imagine a college football locker room, you know, and something like that, where it's a lot of camaraderie, a lot of going fun, a lot of doing good. But when those guys, the HA or the Aryan Brotherhood, want something done, that's the first person they go get, man. They get one of them throwaways. They call the shots, they send them down. Any paperwork that comes through the squad for any white everywhere, that group or locker room, that's who gets to get them. And so just enforcers, you know, and people who really like violence and don't care, you know, and it goes on a rotation. Like for me, when I first got there, I was really trying to build clout. Like if I could take a mission, I would do it. You know, it was something that if you're a child molester or a rapist, you deserve it anyways, you know. But come to find out that a lot of those things are just drug debts, or like I said, someone slept with someone's wife, and now you're stomping this guy's brains out because he's a child molester with no paperwork, but you don't know. And so those are the things that haunt you later on, man, or because they're in an interracial relationship and you just killed this guy because, or he's got the Jewish star tattooed on him. These are the things that haunt you in your bed later on, like, wait, why did we do that? You know, and or when things need taken back, right? So like there's the big homie that just came in from the HA and they put him in the shoe right away, so now we got to bring him a bunch of stuff. Well, that's the skinheads that are doing that. Yeah, they are going to go get caught to go to the back to bring them a bunch of pawns in a really, really big game, where I'm sure those other guys are the ones doing that Fast and Furious stuff, man, and these other guys that are just stuck in poverty, that, you know, most of them drug addicts. 90% of the skinhead thing is all really wrapped around drugs, you know.
Back then, was paperwork big in a state's
Huge,
penitentiary?
so huge, man. It was, you know, it was kind of something that we could hang our hat on back then, you know, with the laws changing and the way society has gone with this, you know, making not things okay and okay things not, that this whole PC thing has like gone out, from what I understand, out of control to where like the PCs have to PC up for the PCs and stuff, you know. But back then it was like an honor thing, a rite of passage to be able to, yeah, I did this time at this yard, you know, for this time. And people are like, oh, wow, well, you must be all right. But yeah, that was, it was crazy, man. Back before surveillance cameras.
Yeah, I mean, even now in a lot of Fed prisons, there's no cameras in the dorms, in
Yeah,
the
blind
hallways.
spots.
There's so many.
Yeah.
And you would think in today's world you would have that.
Yeah.
Because they're taking away all your rights. They might as well take away your right to privacy, too, to make them safer. It's almost like they enable that to a certain degree.
Yeah, it's to have broken through and be on the other side and watch America manipulate the drugs, to manipulate the prisons, to manipulate this for financial gain, and for keeping those, like I said, the 30% apart from each other. You know, that's what they really try to do. And yeah, it's very dangerous, man. I'm very blessed. Most of my friends are dead to overdose, drug addiction, or violence.
Tell us about the relationship with like skinheads and prison guards and gang members in general in the prisons.
Yeah, respected. The correctional officers that I came into contact with, I mean, some of them were the ones bringing in the tattoo ink and the Taco Bell, and you know, they were high school friends of the guys that I was in prison with, and that's a cool thing too about not to glorify ganging up or clicking up or anything like that, but you know, you get brought into something with these guys that are, you know, I was 20, they're 30, 40 years old, their career, these guys. So I think that on one hand, they kind of respect you a little bit more, you know, like, hey man, this fool's serious about this. But then I also feel like, especially when you get to like the back and everything, like, or even now today, right? I get pulled over. I'm an ex-gang member. They don't care if you're ex-gang member. They don't care if you're active. They don't care what it is. You get treated a whole nother way because of the choices that we made, the history.
Did you have to get gang-related tattoos once you got into the skinheads?
Yeah, no, I was always not going to do that. Like, I knew when I had gotten into it that it wasn't going to be it for everything. You know, I'm from San Diego, and Oceanside is my favorite beach. And I could never picture myself with my shirt off walking down in Oceanside with a swastika or an iron cross or something. I knew that this was just, when I was in Rome, I had to do as the Romans did. And then when I got out, too, I never really sought friendships with these guys. I wasn't, like, trying to look them up and hang out with them. It was just something that I tried a couple times, like I said, like, to go see if they were, like, because if they were doing some Fast and Furious stuff, I was going to be involved in it, bro. I was like, I could drive a car somewhere or do something. But whenever you go check them out and they're just doing the same gutter junkie stuff that you're doing, then you're like, wait a minute, this isn't it. But yeah.
Once you realized the violent aspect of the skinheads, did you feel some type of way about recruiting new people that were once in your shoes?
Yeah, that actually happened, man. There was this kid, I think he's passed away since, so we'll name him nameless, but we grew up together, man. My mom accidentally ran him over in a car, like we were all biking one day, and he ran him over, and fast forward 15, 20 years later, I'm walking through prison, and there he is in the cell. He's like, what's up, Conrad? I'm like, no, not you, bro. Like, no. He ended up piecing it up like 6 months later, man, over some debt or something. But they got him really good on the way out, you know? And, yeah, there's this different side of savagery that you have to be able to maneuver through to be able to come out on the okay side. And it's not for everybody. And that's something that, you know, those guys, they prey on that stuff, man. They're savages, and they look for stuff like that they can manipulate for their own benefit. But I think because of my street smarts, man, because growing up without a dad and having to really defend and protect ourselves, you know, that we were maybe a next level above. And then the rigorous physical stuff, right? Like playing sports for 12 years made us super callous to not only the emotional and feelings of emptiness from not being loved, but then the physical disciplines of like punishing yourself every day that kind of crafted my brain a little bit differently to be able to pursue and get through some of those long and hard times.
When you first got recruited, were you sent on like send-off missions as a new recruit like other prison gangs are?
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely. You're the first one to get picked when it comes up. And I got more stories than I'd care to share with anybody, and about those kind of things, about paperwork checks, about, this guy didn't do this or did this, and now you're the one that's got to get them. And you hear stories about like, well, I had to do it or I was going to get stabbed, or I had to do it or this was going to happen. And nobody ever came at me like that, man. I'm like, shh, let's go. Like socks full of batteries, rocks over guys, like crazy things that, I had to really give to God, man, and ask for his forgiveness, for him to show grace on my life so I could process through the demons that try to haunt you for that stuff, man. And not proud of it, but I know it's still going on today, the savagery, the low worth of life that's inside those places. So if anybody has anybody that's in one of them places right now, we need to pray for them, man, and we need to support them as much as they can, because they may say everything's okay, but they're still walking on eggshells every day.
Back then, what was the process to check paperwork? Because it's not like in today's world you could get your paperwork right away, or things are different. It's digital now.
Yeah.
What was it back then? And what were you looking for in the paperwork? And how long would they get? Like, what's the whole process?
Yeah, no, I wasn't never a shot caller. I wasn't really the one at the top of any of that. I was more of an enforcer type. So I couldn't even answer that question.
Well, how did they check yours?
Yeah, you just came with it from court.
Okay.
And you bring it in there. Yeah, if you don't have your paperwork, then you have a certain amount of days before you have to. I mean, I don't even know how it works now. You could make some documents up that look just like paperwork and turn it in and say, hey, Ian's a snitch, man. Look at this.
Yeah, I had interviewed a white-collar guy where he would change snitches' paperwork.
Yeah.
And then those same guys were checking other people's paperwork.
Oh, my God. That's how backwards this whole thing has gotten, man, where it's like you don't even know what's right or wrong, or what's even inside of like that thought philosophy. There's always like a governing force or a moral concept, even in the depravity of it. And then when that is like gray washed, then where does it stand? And that's one of the. I mean, I'm glad that I had other reasons to get out and make wiser choices, but that was definitely one of them, dude. Where like you don't know what's the truth, you don't know what's not, but yeah, and like I said, man, the what's they call that when the imposter syndrome, when you start getting into success and you start walking down here, that's what flashes back in my head, man.
So now back then, was it very political in the sense where you couldn't go after someone without talking to like the head of their gang?
Yeah, 100%. Yep, that's exactly why you ganged up, man. It was so political, like the whole eating after. Like not even just sitting next to, like you can't eat after, you can't, be on the same playgrounds, you can't use the same weight equipments.
As other gangs?
As a racist, period.
Really?
Yeah.
So what would you do? How do you even operate? Your guys are going first?
Yeah, you guys take turns, but yeah, man, it's really like the movies inside the California state prison system, and I don't know, man. It was just a whole nother way of life. Like it was like gladiators, man. Like it was crazy.
Did guards know not to put you in the same cell as other individuals?
Yeah.
Back then?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So they all have different classifications if you're gang related or not, and.
But you weren't gang related when you went in.
No, and for a long time, no one knew that I was like. I wouldn't tell people, like they would get. 1488 across their chest or a swastika. The next time they come back, like, oh, you're a skinhead. There you go, But I think that as much as I was willing to jump at any time, I'm also been kind of smart and like not getting myself into situations that were unavoidable, like wrecks, right? Like following the guidelines, making sure you stay on the right side of the thing and not this side of the thing. but very shrewd person, I would call myself. You know, try to be as wise, even in my stupidity, being wise.
As an enforcer, do they pay you, or do you have to have a hustle?
No, your hustle, man. Yeah.
So you still have to hustle, even though you're putting in work for the gang.
Even though you're putting in work, yeah.
So what was your hustle?
I would keep point for tattooers, man.
What do you mean? Oh, you're the guard?
Yeah, that's it.
And
that's
how much?
I got.
Oh, you got that ink from doing keeping point.
Yeah.
So were you getting paid and getting free ink?
Yeah,
or?
yeah. I mean, paid isn't daily.
What
You
would
get your
the
coffee, you get your smokes, you get whatever you need. Sit outside, listen to the radio. Hey,
Wow.
man, they're walking.
Oh yeah, back then you could smoke in there too.
Oh yeah,
Ah,
yeah.
that's incredible.
It was insane.
And the tattoo guns back then, how were those made?
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine what they've gotten in there now. Probably the same ones we have in the pro shop. But yeah, it was a Walkman. You smash the Walkman and pull out a little Jolly Rancher motor, and everything else was homemade. We got our needles from Bic lighters. You break open a Bic and it has a spring in it, and you put it over fire, and you pull it, and then it's sharp, two sides. You bend the other end, put it in the machine.
Now we use guitar string.
Yeah.
What about colored ink? Did you guys have that or no?
Only when the guards brought him in. Yeah, one time, I mean, this guy, rest in peace, I'm sure he's gone too, but he was doing a tattoo, and I was sitting outside, and the CO's walking, man, and I'm like, hey, he's walking. He's like, oh, it's cool. I'm like, no, dude, he's walking. He's like, no, it's cool. I'm like, bro, that's it. We're all busted right now. And he came around, and the guy pulled out a big old Taco Bell bag, and it had Taco Bell and a bunch of colored inks in it.
Holy cow! So these stories must be where like The Longest Yard or The Shot Caller, they stem from that because it's real stuff.
Yeah.
And a lot of movies are fictitious, but I feel like the prison movies do a good job because it stems from someone.
Yeah, it does. They're actually replicating something that actually happened similar time somewhere else.
Now back to the tattooing, because this is a great segue because you're a tattoo artist.
Yeah.
I've always been curious, how safe is it to get a tattoo in prison?
Yeah.
Like the effects, the infection, everything. I know some guys just like pour like rubbing alcohol or anything after the tattoo, or they don't even put anything on it.
Yeah, no, I think that it's pretty good, man. It really all varies. It's just like the tattoo shops in America today, right? Like, there's so many that you wouldn't even have to bat an eye at. You would just know, fantastic. And there's so many where you're like, I wouldn't go there with your arm, let alone my own arm, because it's just filthy. And so, at least my OGs that have been tattooing in prison for 20 years had got the stuff down to a science. As safe as you could possibly could, as sanitary as you possibly could. A lot of these guys would work the nurses, man. The nurses, or the COs in the nursing department, or the nurses, what do they call them, porters?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then so you get the gloves, you get the everything from the nurse's porter, or from the nurse herself, or from the CO. And then it's super duper sanitary. I make jokes at the tattoo shop now. You know, they're like, "Oh, you gotta use distilled water. Oh, you gotta use this. You got." I'm like, bro, you don't have to. You know, that is better. But we tattooed with tap water and black ink, and never once got infected.
Now, are they changing the needle in prison because it's harder to get? They are after every time.
I mean, but this is from guys who are seasoned vets. You know, we were like the guys that I learned from. Like, they weren't just regular. I never looked at the body as a bathroom stall. And there's a 99% of prison tattooers are just like, oh, sure, yeah. Oh, yeah, sure, you know? And with that affiliation, the ClickUp that I had, this guy's been doing this stuff for years. So, like I said, I'd make it my hustle to keep point for them. And then, you know, that was 21 hours straight, same dude. I was waiting for the guy. Okay, cool, that guy. The guy did my chest and my back, you know?
All in prison.
All in prison.
You're never worried about getting like caught and it doesn't get finished, or that guy gets popped and you have to go to a different artist?
No, I'm super well thought out, methodical. Same thing, like as crazy and as wild and sporadic I am. I'll just do something today that I never thought I was going to do yesterday. But I'm really thought out and methodical too. And so, yeah, you worry about that. But I mean, I think I paid $30 for my chest plate, and I kept point for like 4 months outside this guy's thing.
$30,
Yeah.
holy cow!
Yeah.
Now, what's the truth behind the aftercare? Because it's a millions of dollars in business now because these companies are coming up with aftercare. But you see guys like JD, who you met, they didn't put aftercare on in prison. Is this a myth just to make money in today's world, or?
There's benefits to it. My preferred aftercare is extra virgin olive oil.
Really?
Yeah,
That's
God
the
put
first
something
I've heard
in those
this.
oil in that olive that makes it just like feel so good, dude. Yeah.
And do you do that and then lotion after when it starts peeling?
Yeah.
Okay.
And you kind of like Jergens, or we use the cocoa butter cream, you know.
Fragrance free, right?
Fragrance free,
Okay.
yeah. But it is funny, like, I mean, that's a great point, you know. all these businesses that have made so much money off of marketing to something that it's kind of vain. You know, it's kind of like it's cool. You could put any lotion on yourself and make your old tattoo sparkle. You know, like the Mad Rabbit or whatever.
Now, is there a difference between the ink in prison versus street ink?
That's the difference, man.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a big difference. And then the people, the same thing. Like I talked about, the variety. Because we're not talking about like black and gray tattoos or traditional tattoos or Japanese tattoos. We're talking so much. Like you'll hear the worst things you could ever imagine, like styrofoam, burning plastic chess pieces, you know? And a lot of it like just makes no sense. Like, why in the world would you put that in your body, dude? Like, that'll make no sense. But my OGs taught me it's, so you get a tuna can and you empty it out and then you fill it full of baby oil. And you make a little wick, put it underneath the thing, let it light, all the soot that catches right here. You just take your file folder and knock all that soot off. And then some people even put like soap or shampoo, like, you need 2 drops of shampoo, some toothpaste. And my OG, I remember he told me, man, toothpaste is for your mouth. He said, soap's for your body. He's like, don't put shampoo's for your hair, man. He's like, just put the water and a little rock in there, man.
Now, do you have any of those tattoos that got that ink in
Oh,
you?
yeah, all
And
of
how
those.
do they look now? What do you...
Fantastic.
Did you have to redo any of those?
None of them.
Incredible. So that's like such a huge misconception.
Yeah, because 80% of the stigmas are true. They're right. 80% of people treat people's bodies like the bathroom stall. You know, like I've never done a rose before. Sure, sit down. You know, or the stencil qualities, right? But just like anywhere, anything, if you research and you find the good guys and you know what they're doing, then that's why I mean, even inside of my 8 years professional tattooing, you get that. The imposter syndrome, man. I'm like, wait a minute. Like my uncle did own a tattoo shop. I got all the my buddies did all tattoo. Like I may not have been the one slinging the ink, but I know all this stuff from way back in the day. So it helps me battle through to go back to those conversations with them OGs, man, and having spent all that time with them.
So in today's world, like when you do the shading, they switch the needle to like multiple needles.
Yeah.
Then
all single needle.
All single. So what is that more painful or is that harder, longer? What's the difference?
Yeah, so it's actually similar to the way I tattoo right now. I tattoo with a 3-liner for most of my tattoos. Way less painful.
Just doing the single one?
Yeah. Really? Oh man, it's amazing the difference between a coil machine and a rotary, which technically those are like the first rotaries ever, and the trauma to the skin, the healing process, and the pain. Those 3 things are game changers. But that's what people ask me, you had your tattoo from head to toe, did it hurt? And I'm like,
I asked you
well
earlier.
yeah, kind of, but everybody knew what the heck they were doing, and everybody liked me, man. And it's different when they really know what they're doing and they really like you. Like, it's really therapeutic, man. You know, from a kid who came with the trauma I came from, I've always looked at tattoo as a form of therapy, and now to be able to one, train people up to do it, and then my client base, who I feel like we connect on way more than just a tattoo basis. Yeah, man, it's great.
So you came out of that first bid in the penitentiary a tatted up gang member now.
Yeah.
So what happens? You're on the streets, and how long were you free before you got jammed up again?
Yeah, not very long. I ended up getting out, and when we went to Fallbrook when I was 7, my mom married this dude, Brad, and they stayed married till I was 12. So he's my stepdad from 7 to 12, but then he left. Brad was always a mechanic. So I got out of prison the first time, and Brad was working at a mechanic shop in my town, which was Econo Lubentune, and they got bought out by Meineke. So I got my first job at 18. I had never worked on a car ever in my whole life. I was breaking off oil plugs and putting the wrong stuff in everything, and I worked at the same place until I became a professional tattooer for the same company. And so I would go work at Econo Lube and then catch a case for DUI or possession or, it was that revolving door. And I feel so bad that I've got 10 years. I feel bad for the people still just caught in the trap, man. The shame, the guilt, the relapse, the shame, the guilt, the relapse. And that's where I was at, where I would run my plays. I would do everything that I thought I needed to do, whether, and being stuck with no knowledge. Knowledge is power and money and ambition and these other things, opportunities. That 30% that I'm talking about they're still out there. I know we are. You feel like I put myself in this box where I could only work at Home Depot. Like if I just got the job at Home Depot, that would be great. And so I would find these jobs that really had no end, but I didn't really want to be invested in them anyways. and then something would happen and I would relapse or I would catch a new case. And then I had my 2 kids, Christopher and Brennan, 2008 and 10, and I thought that was it. Like, okay, if I always wanted to be a good dad, I never had a dad. If I could have these kids, then I'll pull my head out of my butt, I'll get clean, and that didn't happen. So then, 2012, my ex-wife divorced me, and I lost both my kids. I went to prison again, and lost both my kids to my mom. And that's when, this is a crazy story, bro. So I am on the run from parole in San Diego in 2012. This girl I'm sleeping with is like, bro, you're going back to prison. You need to get out of here. I go to Arizona to go to halfway house out there. I'm going to get clean. I'm going to, relocation's everything. As long as I'm not in San Diego, I'll be able to do it. And I go out there and I get off the bus, and there I am with all my problems, dude, and all the same issues. So I'm at this halfway house. It's literally all convicts. Everybody's everybody's leaving in the middle of the night. I'm like, oh, man, this isn't going to work. I do like 2 or 3 days, I relapse. Boom. Then I meet this girl. And so now I leave the treatment center, and I'm at this girl's house that I just met. It was their mom, 800 miles from home. Nobody, nothing. I got a backpack, and that's it. And we go down to this bar. And I've told her, I don't drink whiskey, man. I'm kind of an angry person. I'm trying to put it in the back pocket right now, but I don't drink whiskey. Somehow we started drinking whiskey. I tried to fight the bartender. I skated there on a skateboard, right? So she didn't know that I had skated there. So we're leaving, and she's like, while we're walking down to her apartment, and she's like, yeah, let's go this way. I'm like, hold on, I forgot my wallet. I'm going to go back and grab my wallet real quick. And I didn't. I went back and grabbed my skateboard. And I go walking down the road, and the police light me up, dude. We're in Mesa, Arizona, and the police light me up. And I'm like, oh, crap, man, what am I going to do? I'm on the run, So I come over, I stand there, I give my brother's name. It's not checking out, dude. I'm drunk. It's not checking out. They just got a call on me from right down the street. Like, this guy is not. So I get up to go run, and they let the dog go, bro. They let the dog go. It mauled my whole side. I flopped around and I thought I was in San Diego, man. The whole time I'm telling them, I'm going to sue you. Like, you can't do that to people. I didn't do anything. Like, I've got 8 bite marks in my arm. I'm on the way to the hospital. I'm still talking shit. Like, you guys are wrong. I can't believe you did that to me. I got 3 years in Arizona State Penitentiary, man, for assault on a police officer.
Holy cow.
Yeah, they strung my sentencing date out because I was a known gang member in San Diego. And they sentenced me on national cop died on duty day. And the cop got up there and lied and said that my life was in danger. This gang member tried to kill me. I'd let the dog go and stuff. But that was the best thing that ever happened to me, man.
So when the dog attacks you, is there any way to sue or repercussions? Who pays for the medical, anything like that?
Yeah, no, I mean, the Wild West, bro. California, Arizona, you don't want to commit crimes in these places, man. These guys will do whatever they need to do to be able to get wherever they got to go. And they got me total. I mean, I've been police brutalized more times than you count. You go to county jail and you do something wrong, you're going to get brutalized by the police. Like, it's just the way it goes. Which I had been done before. No big deal. Like, you kick my ass, send me along my way, no big deal. But I thought for sure there was going to be some kind of repercussions for this, dude. Like, there is no way that you can just, and yeah, you can, dude. They can. And it's kind of like we heard when the guy was talking earlier about how money gets you out of problems. Well, if you ain't got no money, you got all the problems. Yeah, and that's how I was, man. So
when you get to Arizona, do you have to, when you first get into that penitentiary, do you have to make yourself known that you are a skinhead gang member?
Yeah, so this is a great question, man. You're a good interviewer. So I woke up in Arizona State Penitentiary, solitary confinement. I'm a known gang member, high max, like, okay, cool, this is it, Chris. And I couldn't even pull my arm. Like, I've been a fighter my whole life. Like, you're not going to tell me what to do. And I had to have that come to Jesus moment, man. Like, I had known of a God when I was a kid that was my parents that was not right and it was all wrong. And I knew that there was something bigger than me out there working because I should be dead. Like, why am I here with 800 miles with nothing, nobody? Like, and that's when I said, you know what? I can go to this prison and be this skinhead from this clique in San Diego and do the same thing all over again, or I could try something new, man. And I remember praying and reading my Bible and stuff, and I feel like I kind of had an Apostle Paul moment, man, where, like, I woke up, there was nobody in the middle of the night, and, like, I hear a voice from the sky, and it's like, hey, man, go this way or that way. And I'm like, what? And so I started pursuing the things of God again. I went to the Mormon church. I went to any service they had down there. I don't care, black, white, Mexican. I was like, man, there's got to be something better than this. And
In prison.
in the county jail, Maricopa County Jail. Yeah, Maricopa's no joke too, man. Like, there's Sheriff Joe Arpaio out there, and they got the pink underwear and all that stuff. You know, sack lunch. That's all you get. It's crazy times, man. But I just knew that there was a better life out there for me, man. I knew that, you know, with enough hard work and enough dedication, that I could probably be in my kid's life again. That was my only goal at the time. You know, like just to get back to society, to be able to get some kind of menial job, to not have to ever come back to prison again. And so from there, I got sent to Florence East Unit, and it's a level 3 prison. And man, there's something magical going on out there, bro. Like, total answered prayer. So Sunday, I go to church for the first time ever, man. It's a big army hut, you know, like circle half dome thing. And I walk in, there's like 150 dudes packed inside this place. I'm like, the heck, in church, you know, in prison and stuff. And so I go, I like it, man. I'm like, man, these guys are on fire for God right here, right? So then I go to Bible study. They have Bible study Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I go in, 65-year-old black man leading the thing. And he's borderline gay, but it doesn't, you can't really tell, but he's doing life in prison, right? So I'm like, all right, God, this is funny, you know? I'm supposed to be an ex-skinhead guy who's going to get my whole life transformed by this gay black man, right? And this guy's speaking truth, man. I could feel it resonate. I'm going back every day, and I'm like, either this fool's lying or I don't know God, because it doesn't add up. Like, this guy's talking this stuff, and I can't even barely understand it, but I want what he's got, man. So I got involved with that little tiny church inside of prison. I'm still getting high, still working in the kitchen, still stealing. You know, I'm still doing the things that's who I was. That's what I did. And I went to this thing. It was called Quest for Authentic Manhood. And because I knew that I didn't know what a man was, that my definition of a man was wrong. And I had to redefine that for myself if I wanted to get to where I needed to go. So I go to this class with a bunch of other dudes down there, and it's fantastic. I've actually taken a couple of my friends through it now to help them give a broader understanding of what manhood looks like. And at the very end, it says, okay, you're not done yet. You have to go find a mentor, you know? And I'm like, this is not for guys in prison, dude. Like, who mentor? Like, you know? So I picked out this guy, Pete. We're in Arizona, but he was also from San Diego. He was a lifer and a murderer. Good-looking Mexican guy. I'm like, this is my mentor, man. Like, this is the guy I want to be, you know? And I go back, and I'm thinking on it, and I'm getting ready to go ask this dude, and God tells me, like, no, man, Eric is your mentor. But Eric is ugly, short, fat. He's got glasses on and shit, you know? Like, I don't think so, God. I think Pete's a better option for a mentor for me, man, you know? And I remember going down to Eric's cell and telling him, hey, man, what do you think about being my mentor, man? And he's like, yeah, what's that? I'm like, what? He's like, I don't even know what a mentor is, man. But we ended up doing Rick Warren's Purpose-Driven Life. We only had one copy of the book. So we had to journal.
I think I read that in prison and
yeah, everybody reads it, dude.
Yes, I did read that. Yep.
It's like a 40-day devotional or something, and well, we did it every day, man. And we would meet up on Sundays or Saturdays and eat together and go over our journals. Like, oh, okay, that's what God said to you. Okay, that's what that means. Boom, boom, boom. Now, since then, I've been able to acquire a lot of mentors in my life, but that was the first time where I was able to humble myself and say, you know what, I don't know this, and I need to go get some advice and wisdom from another older man. And man, we're still friends today. It worked out great.
So you're able to live safely renouncing gang activity in that prison?
Yeah, exactly, man. And
so it's totally different than California politics then?
No, I'm sure I could have done the same thing that way.
Really?
I'm sure of it, yeah. It haunted me for a little bit when I was in prison, you know, but I feel like the good Lord has blessed me, man. Not saying I've never done nothing wrong. I've done lots of things wrong. Mm-hmm. But I have this, I don't know what you call it, no women, children, or old people, you know? And I've lived my life to that. And God could witness for that stuff, man. So I think that He watches in the secret what we do in the what we're really doing. And somewhere inside my heart, He saw that I wanted to always do good, even though I wasn't, you know? And there is victimless crimes, you know, and stuff like that. And so having kind of, even though tiptoed along the side of darkness my entire, you know, existence through there, having never told on anybody, you know, having never, you know, done those things to me that are cardinal sins, that's where I kind of hung my hat on that stuff, you know, or like, hey, you know what? I used to like that. I'm not like that anymore. You want to catch a fade? We can do it out back, you know? But then again, like it's not blood in, blood out kind of thing. Anyways, it's not like if you're one of the brothers or something like that, you're not getting out of that. The cliques that I was involved with were super non-relevant.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about because even the Aryan Brotherhood or anything, the people that join are good paperwork, not chomos, not snitches. The fact that you can't leave voluntarily as a man, which is the same way you join, which in some cases you're forced, but either way, like you're good to join, you're cleared to join. It is kind of hypocritical that someone couldn't leave voluntarily.
Yeah, it's beyond. I don't know. I'm glad that I was at one point in my young skinhead career. The HA guy was in the yard with us, and he's like, "Come on, man, come on, you'd be great." And I was like, "Yeah, no, absolutely not." And I don't know if that had gone anywhere. Probably not. Like I was so poor and so worthless that like they'd have checked me out and been like, "Yeah, no, we're good with you," But yeah, those are the decisions those guys have to make, man. Where they put that above their own family.
So you get out in 2015. You never go back. How do you rebuild your life?
Dude,
and how do you end up here?
This is the story, man. This is where it really starts, right? So that was my experience. Now comes my strength. I'm in that prison. I'm watching these Christian dudes do their thing. I'm like, man, that's the kind of life I want to have. And there was a program that's still active today. If you guys check it out, it's called Alongside Ministries in Phoenix, Arizona. And that program is why I'm sitting here, man. Like, they did everything for me that I could not do for myself. It was a program that was established through, gosh, I'm having a brain fart. It's a huge one out there. Big prison ministry that really only helps convicts while they're incarcerated, but then they get out. Prison fellowship, great program, still great to this day. Their fault is that when people get out, they come right back. There's a huge recidivism rate because people love the Lord and then they get out and fall on their face. Well, this guy, Collis Huntington, who lived in Oregon, got the call of God down to Arizona, 10 or 15 years before I joined this program because it was well established by the time I got there. Starts with the first guy. Is like, hey, man, you did prison fellowship. Now you go to this hotel. We're going to pay for you, and we're going to program you outside of the walls for like 6 months, and we'll see how you do. Took off like wildfire. So this guy goes across Phoenix to these regular places, like people have never been in trouble before, and recruits mentors for us. And then he pairs us up. It's amazing, dude. Like I had a 72-year-old tax accountant that was wealthy beyond his years that had a son that was in addiction that he couldn't do nothing about. And so he thought that by helping me out, that maybe he'd get a little favor from the big man upstairs or whatever, And it radically changed my life.
That's what I do now. I mentor kids in the juvenile system.
It's huge.
I bring them under my wing, and I'm someone that went to prison. I'm not an accountant, but I went to prison, so I understand where they came from, and they can come in, see my studio, see what I built from prison.
Yeah, it's so important. And keep it up, man, because without those guys. So I'd done the Quest for Authentic Manhood class. I had started like journaling, getting into the things. I had fasted. I fasted for 3 days, man. And that's when I figured out that I didn't need drugs anymore. Like, the big man spoke to me. He's like, if you can't eat for 3 days, surely you can go without heroin or speed for 3 days. And that's when that yoke was broke off my back. But practicing the things of spirituality. Then I got to that program Alongside Ministries. So I was selling candy. I had a candy hustle and in prison, and it was pretty lucrative, man. I got out with like $1,000 on my books selling candy, and I got out. I got a dead end job at like it was an assembly plant with like nuts and bolts and stuff, and relearning how to live like a teenage man. Like, I need a gold chain and some new shoes, and the mentor was like, no, dog, you need a bus pass to get to work and save your money. You don't have your license yet, But being able to see that they had been established, that the people that the convicts that they were working with, respected and trusted them and believed in them, I sold out for this place, man. I was like, whatever they tell me to do, I'm gonna do it. And had a lot of humbling experiences through that, like waking up early to ride my bike in the Arizona sun, in my 30s, to work a minimum wage job, to ride the bus back, but it's what a person has to do to change, and changing my thought process, changing the way I thought about myself, changing the way that other people thought about me, and that the way that I thought about other people, and really through the practice of spirituality and then the 12 steps, I got a sponsor. So I had a mentor there, and I got a sponsor and worked my 12 steps. And I was like 9 months into this 12-month program. I'm like, all right, I'm good, guys. I'm ready to go back to Cali. Like, this place sucks. I'm done. And the men's director, the guy who got me into the program, took me to lunch. He sat across the table from me just like this is. He's like, Chris, I thought about it, man. I prayed about it. He's like, you should finish this program, man. You said you would. And I looked at the man, and for the first time, he didn't want to sleep with my wife. He didn't want my dope. He didn't want anything from me except for me to do good, you know? And I was like, you know what, Allison? I'm going to stay, man. And I graduated that program 3 months later at a year, and I had a felony case in San Diego and a felony case in Riverside that were still hanging over my head, and took that paper back home, and they cleared both of them.
Wow.
Yeah, they just wiped them right off the side. But I still have relationships with those men who literally, Ian taught me everything, man. Like, we went through the Zig Ziglar book, you know, on how to treat your finances, how to treat your responsibilities, how to treat, you know, these other things that were plays that I didn't even have. I didn't even know those tools existed. And then through practicing them, I feel like Dr. Charles Stanley said that relationships are bridges, you know, and we're supposed to be building these bridges with other people. And well-worn bridges during good times is where we go during bad times. Because if it's not well-worn, then we don't go. How heavy the phone gets because we're not talking to those people on a regular basis. So that's what I've tried to do with my life since then, is one, have 5 friends that are smarter than me, that are pastors and leaders in the community, tattooers, business owners, entrepreneurs, that when I have these hard times in my life or these decisions that are just beyond me, I can bring to, like the Bible says that war is waged with wise counsel. So from back then, almost now 10 years ago, I was at that dead-end job, and the director's best friend was hiring, and I took the job with this guy, Roberto, and he's like my best friend now, man. He walked me through hustling as a believer, through loving your wife, through loving the community, and I moved back to Fallbrook in 2016, and I took a job at a flower nursery because I had neck tats and nobody else would hire me. And then about a year and a half into that, I worked my way up to where like all the illegals and then me, and they wouldn't let me in the office or anywhere near the clients. And I just got to the top, and I figured that wasn't for me. So I remember the day, bro. I was driving my tractor around this track, this nursery, dirt everywhere, and this little outhouse. And I'd gotten a college degree at the time by working on my cell phone in the outhouses. Mm-hmm. And so I go to the outhouse and I look for jobs on Craigslist back in the Craigslist days. And I'm looking, and it says, drug and alcohol counselor, Fallbrook. And I'm like, what? And I click on it, and it says, drug and alcohol experience, a must. I'm like, I got that. So I emailed back. I got lots of experience with drugs and alcohol. Went for a job interview the next day at this super uppity private rehabilitation center in my house. In my hometown that I didn't even know was there. And I walked in, and the counselor was in my growth group from our church. And she's like, Chris, you're hired. So I went from like $12 an hour to like $16 an hour. And I worked there diligently for like a year and a half. But that's when I got that tattoo bug, when I started doing tattoos again. And then it wasn't very long after I thought my ambition was to be a drug and alcohol counselor, or maybe even a youth pastor or something, somewhere to give back to the kids, because my heart is for fatherless, man. I really got a big heart for addicts and for people who are born in opposition to just success, with everything stacked against them, you know. So I was a drug and alcohol counselor. I thought for sure this is going to be my lick, like this will be great. And no, man, God gave me tattoo, and shortly after that, and I made the switch from like being an employee to being a boss.
Wow. Now, as an ex-gang member, you're very open about talking about it.
Yeah.
Are you afraid of what people might portray you as by openly talking about it without knowing your story? Just like, you know, every day on the street, obviously this understands and shines a light on how you became one and what really happened. Yeah. But talking about it normally, like you meet someone, hey, or like a girlfriend or anything, you know, yeah. I'm an ex-skinhead.
Yeah.
What makes you comfortable to do that, to give kind of courage to others to be able to say that?
Yeah. I really don't care what you think, man. You know, I'm not smart enough to think like that. I thank God very often that, like, I'm an entrepreneur now of almost 8 years, and I'm glad I didn't understand all the challenges at the beginning, because I probably never would have done it. You know, I'm definitely in the moment type person. I'm definitely trying to stay present all the time, you know. And then I find my worth in the big man. I don't find my worth in what you or anybody else thinks about me. I do believe in living amends, you know, and I practice that every day. Like, man, you're the best dad to your kids now. Well, I've got this over here. Or you're the best husband to your wife, or leader in your business, or, you know, these things, because we're living those amends out. Like, to look one way is fine, and for people to judge me is fine. I did not understand it, Ian. I'm from the coast, man. Everybody looks like this, bro. I moved out here. People looking down their nose at me, bro, yelling at me in the parking lots and stuff. And I go back home to Cali and I tell my Marine homies, I'm like, dude, can you believe? He's like, oh yeah, I get it. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, well, think if you're trying to buy a house, how important are your real estate homies? Hey, bro, you get coffee? Did you find my house? Hey, did you get lunch? You found my house? But if you're not buying a house, hey, dude, stop calling me. And these people that have made up in their mind that they're never, ever going to get a tattoo, or that they never, ever would, they look at us like useless, man, or worthless. Like, if I walk from here down to the Shell station, 9 out of 10 cars drive by. Worthless, drug addict, what'd he steal? You know? And it's okay. You know, I've come to embrace it. Like, I'm a tattoo. Whenever they look at me, they say, it's okay, I'm a professional. But for the average person, I know it's not like that, you know? And that's why, me personally, I really don't try to give people bad tattoos, because I've just really started to understand this, too. Like, the opportunities in a person's life, right? Like, I may not look at you because you got questionable tattoos, or you look at me that way, but it doesn't mean that when they walk into the Shell for a job application, or the nursing school, or wherever, that people, if they have a not quality tattoo, they went from like a solid 8 to a 6, and the person said like that, you know? So yeah, I think that will never really, you just got to embrace it, man. You got, now, like we heard earlier with our friends, the darker the background, the brighter the light, man. Mm-hmm. You know, and my brother, you know, he's a complete normie, dude. And he's the reason I'm out here is because he moved out here and I followed him. And he's like, man, Chris will give you with a smile every time, man. Like, the most dangerous person in the room, just light it up, smiling, you know, because as much as I used to hate myself and other people and things, I think I've really come into a spiritual enlightenment where I can really love myself, man, and in turn, really show other people love.
That's incredible. What do you want people to take away from your story? You know, maybe someone that was your age and facing those decisions, going to prison, or they have a loved one in prison that is going through what you're going through, or anything. What do you want people to take away from
never,
this?
Ever give up. I've had suicidal ideation since I was a little kid. I remember 7 years old crying in bed, wishing I was dead. Like, why am I here? One more day for this. And if it wasn't for the praying people, and if it wasn't for the steadfastness inside of myself, you have to never give up. You can't. And you can't give up on other people. And you might be the only light that person sees today. You know, whether it's at a gas station in a little interaction, or he's given you a place of influence in someone's life. Like, don't think that it's nonchalant. And then also, I tell somebody this too, that I like to tell my people, is just because somebody tells you something over and over again doesn't make it less true. Mm-hmm. One time I wish my dad would have said, I love you, bud, or good job, you know. And the people with dads are like, yeah, fuck that fool, you know. Like, dude, wait a minute, you know. Your mom, you know, people that do invest in, because if I'd have listened all those years ago, I never would have took the path that I took. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like there wasn't youth pastors or teachers doing that. And then, yeah, never give up. And you have to have a right mind. You got to get your mind right, and then you got to get your grind right, you know. Without taking care of the baggage, all the stuff in the past, you know. I had a visualization one time when I was doing my meditations about, like, everywhere you go, you're supposed to be able to have your hands free to help people, man, because this life is really about out-serving each other and seeing who can help each other the most. But if we don't do that stuff, if we don't work our 12 steps, we don't get mentors, we don't have people pouring into us, then everywhere we go, the suitcase just freaking pops open and there comes all our shit again. We're supposed to be blessing with these hands, but really we're just all trying to carry our own shit around. Yeah. We can take the time to go back and work them 12 steps, you know, to work a program, get with the right people, then you can really put that shit away, man. It's there. It'll always be me. Like, you can't say that I wasn't all that stuff, but that's not who I am today. It's not who defines me. Now my hands are free to go help other people, because the next person I might help, might help my son. You know, we don't know the people thank God those people came into my life all those years ago, You know, I've been blessed with over 10 people that tattoo with us over there, you know. Even more of impact around friends and families, because those people decided to not be selfish and not be lazy and come and help me, you know, for no purpose or no intention. They had no monetary gain. They had nothing to benefit. So, yeah, if you're in that situation, look for those people, man. You're going to find them at church, man, probably, maybe some other places. And two, if I believe in intercession big time, bro. Not just intercession prayer. You know, hey, big man, take care of this. Hey, but no, like, do something about it, man. You know, if you got a son or a daughter that's in addiction, go help somebody, man. You know, if you got a grandpa or a grandma, that go help the old people, man. Like, this is where our community is losing the strength, is a division inside of like, oh, it's this against that or whatever. And so that's what I would say is don't give up hope, man. And that if I could do it, anybody could do it, man. Like, no high school education, never an artist. I opened a business in 2 different states. I tattoo all day, every day, you know, so dedication, hard work, you know, knowledge is power, especially these days with YouTube and how affordable school is these days. You know, set your mind to your goals, set your mind to your dreams. Something we have written on our bathroom mirror is no dream is too big. You know, just the motivation and the will and the desire to get there.
I love that. Chris, thank you so much, man, for trusting me to share your life story and telling it in such great detail, and, you know, sharing the negative moments and also how those negative moments turned into a positive for you.
Thanks, Ian. Thanks for having me, man.